This is Hidden Killers with Tony Bruschi. Here now, Tony Bruschi.
If Ron Logan's proximity to the crime scene in Delphi raises your eyebrows, this next figure should set your hair on fire. Because while the world was fixated on a grainy image of a man on a bridge, there was someone else in plain view, not in the woods, but behind a keyboard, grooming one of the victims in the weeks before she was murdered. Meet Kegan Kline, a man who didn't just pop out of nowhere after the fact. He was actively talking to Liberty German under a fake online persona, Anthony Shots. That was the online name. An account designed to look like an attractive young male. This wasn't some random internet stranger stumbling into her DMs. This was calculated grooming, using stolen images to build trust, flattery, and ultimately, a meeting plan. And that meeting? Set for the same location where Libby and Abby would be found dead hours later. What a coincidence. Now, if you've covered true crime long enough or watched it, you know that the digital trail can be just as damning as any fingerprint. And in Kline's case, it's not just that he was messaging her. It's what he was in reality, a child predator with an enormous cache of illegal material, who somehow wasn't arrested on those charges until 3 years after the murders. Let that timeline marinate for a second. Oh, those good old Delphi folks. They're just on these cases like white on rice. 3 years later. 3 years to the man tied to a victim, tied to a location, in possession of evidence that should have landed him behind bars immediately. And instead of hauling him in, investigators let him simmer. Why? Was it incompetence? Was it an active choice to see who else might be in his circle? Or was it a decision to quietly sidestep the messy overlap between his communications and the murders themselves? Because here's the part that sticks. If you're talking to a victim about meeting at the exact spot where she's later found dead, on the exact same day it happens, you don't get dismissed with a shrug of, couldn't be him, unless someone is looking the other way. So that's where we go now. Who is Kegan Kline? What is the full story behind the Anthony Shots persona? And why wasn't this front and center in the jury's mind when they were weighing Richard Allen's guilt? Carol Hughes is joining us to continue this conversation. Let's dive in. It took them 3 years to finally arrest him on the child porn charges, even though they knew that he had it. That seems a little strange to me unless there's somebody else in this ring of receiving and exchanging these images. Because usually when you get that sort of thing, you go big and you get him arrested. Or you look into it a little bit deeper and you kind of let him simmer and you discover who else is part of this ring and you can go bigger and bust more people. Mm-hmm. They didn't do any of that. They waited 3 years and they finally arrested him on the child porn stuff because everybody's kind of like, hey, you know, this guy's doing this stuff and you know about it. Can we make it stop? They finally get him. But according to him, couldn't have been him. He wasn't there. Yeah, he was talking to her, but it's all just a complete coincidence. That's quite a coincidence that you were talking about meeting at a spot where these two young girls died. And you were talking about meeting those specific girls who died at that specific spot. And you're a child predator. Nothing to see here.
Yeah. And like, so girls that age, 100%, you meet that boy online. You know your parents aren't going to want you to meet him online.
And they were showing
you
fake
think you're
pictures.
Talking to a boy your age.
Yeah.
You know, so for them, I would have done the same thing when I was their age.
Yeah.
You know, I would think, you know, I've been talking to this boy and we're supposed to meet and let's go meet at that bridge. That to me, that makes all the sense why they wanted to go that day, that time.
Of course it is.
They're meeting him at a certain location there.
Kegan Kline was putting out fake images of this Anthony Shots character, and he looked like a young boy that they would have been attracted to. And he's not obviously that guy. He's a big oaf that has no self-control and likes to diddle with kids, who's in jail now. And hopefully someone takes him out at some point. But there's that. So I don't know. I don't know if he was the one that was there at the bridge, but I certainly think you might have had something to do with the girls going there. And did you communicate that these two young girls are going to the bridge at that certain time to one of your other pedo buddies? And maybe they found this happening?
Yeah.
Or did you communicate to Ron or something? I know the story is it couldn't have been any of that. He didn't know Ron. They didn't communicate. It was all just a big coincidence. Believe this story. Then we got some more LA gear I can put in my hair. Need it. As the hairline's getting receding, I'm clogging the pores with the LA gear. Shit. Let's just go back more. More LA gear, please.
It's kind of funny with you putting it on your head with no hair.
It's insane.
Yeah, that one really bothered me because they totally dismissed the possibility, despite the fact that okay, so you have Richard Allen who calls in a timely manner. Maybe he saw something that day.
No history of anything. Yeah.
No history of anything. He seems to be a good dad, a good husband. You know, he was a member of the community. No red flags.
He's a CVS pharmacy worker who is literally at the place everyone in this town goes through and everybody sees every single day for years after this crime. No one in their right mind. There's even pictures of him where you can see in the background, like the wanted photo with the sketch that looked nothing like Richard Allen in it.
Well, and the sketches look nothing like
the sketches look nothing like
they picked out. No, that was weird.
And the sketches are completely different. They look like two totally different people. So that's how crappy this investigation is.
And okay, and I might have missed this part. Maybe I got distracted with a cat or something. But why were the sketches so different? And what were the sketches based off of?
They were
the picture of this guy, the bridge guy that you can't even see his face.
Exactly. They were based on eyewitness accounts, quote unquote. But neither were clearly of.
No, and
or were they, or are they of the killer? Because they're clearly not of Richard Allen, which is really interesting. One of the sketches, and I do not think, and I do not believe this to be true. One of the sketches looks a lot like Andrew McGann, the guy who just stabbed the people here in my town at Devil's Den. But that would have put him in high school or college at the time. Yeah. He wasn't living there. It would have been quite a trek. Is it possible? Yeah. Is it probable? Not at all. No. Same with the Virginia one that they're looking at. Same with the Wisconsin one they're looking at. Possible? Probable? Yeah. Yeah. I don't feel it. But anyway, so the sketches look nothing like the guy.
Nothing.
And this is the guy they go after.
Yeah.
So could there possibly be, Carol, anything else? Could there be anybody else more obvious
there was that
as a suspect in this case that you should be looking at, that at the very least likely have some sort of involvement in some way, shape, or form? Because the odds of all of this lining up, and you now have two people that just have really, really dark, bizarre coincidence happening simultaneously that point to them being involved in a double homicide at a very specific point in time. I don't know what kind of kismet that is or the odds of that happening, but we're probably in the quadrillions. If Ron Logan was the glaring physical world suspect that never made it to the jury, Kegan Kline is a digital world equivalent, and the omission is just as dangerous. When a man is actively grooming a teenage girl under a fake identity, arranging to meet her at the precise location where she's murdered, you don't need to be a seasoned investigator to know that's a lead you chase hard. But instead of pouncing on him, they let him sit. They watched, they waited, and for 3 years, they let a known child predator free before finally arresting him. And even then, only on the child porn charges. The official line? He had nothing to do with the murders. The problem? That line doesn't quite square with the facts we know. You don't have to believe Kline swung the knife to believe he could be part of a chain of events that led Libby and Abby to that bridge. He could have handed their plans to someone else. He could have been part of a larger network. Or he could have simply been the lure. But to act like his contact with Libby was irrelevant is to pretend the digital trail is meaningless. And in today's world, it's often the cleanest and clearest trail you've got. Here's a bitter truth. Once the state locked eyes on Richard Allen, and McClellan put another layer of LA gear in his hair, this represents credibility, super slicked back hair. I don't know what the hell you're thinking. Maybe it works. I don't know. Every other lead became a liability. To admit that Kline's involvement looked bad is to admit the case against Allen isn't as airtight as they want you to believe. If you've learned anything from the first two parts of this conversation, it's that an airtight case isn't what they had. It's what they want you to think they had. And that brings us to the most bizarre, controversial angle of it all. If Logan's property and Kline's digital grooming sound like red flags, what comes next is a flashing strobe light, a theory that moves us from physical evidence to symbolic evidence, from forensics to ritual, and it involves a man named Brad Holder. In our next part, we're going to pull apart the Odinism theory, the stick formations on the bodies, the social media posts, and the unsettling overlaps between the crime scene and the online footprint of a man whose connection to the victims is as real as it is disturbing. Never been accused of a crime, innocent till proven guilty, but there's a lot of weirdness around this dude. Is it all a coincidence? We're going to talk about that next. Press subscribe wherever you're downloading podcasts so you don't miss that conversation. If you're watching us on YouTube, hit subscribe. It's coming up in the feed. And please do, in the comment section, let me know your thoughts. I would love to hear them. And so would everybody else. Because right now there's a man rotting in prison who did not commit this crime. His name is Richard Allen. Meanwhile, there's a lot of other folks dead, also in prison, or living life that probably know a little bit more than we're aware of. I'm Tony Bruschi. We'll talk again real soon.
Want more on this case and others? Then press subscribe now and don't miss a moment of true crime coverage from Tony Bruschi and the Hidden Killers podcast.